Hello and welcome to this week's video. My name is Anuska. So great to have you here. And this week's video is particularly for this busy time of year when we are likely to be out and about more, maybe at parties, at events, we're in pubs, we're in bars, we're in restaurants. There's lots of noise, there's lots of chatter, there's lots of music going on, and our poor voices have to try and compete to get our voice heard across all of this noise. So today what I want to share, which you can use obviously this content at any time of year, it's not just for Christmas, but I want to share 4 ways you can actually more effortlessly project your voice when there's a lot of background noise. I've done videos before on projecting your voice, but this is more when you are quote unquote competing with background noise specifically. So the first point to mention, having literally just said that, is we are never wanting to try and compete with the sound. And this is where I think often we can fall into trouble, because what we try and do is we reach, we strain, we yell, we shout to try and get our voice heard above the background music. And all that's going to happen is you're probably going to lose your voice, or your throat and your voice is not going to be very happy. Particularly when you combine it with alcohol and lack of sleep and all of those other things, it's a recipe for disaster for our poor voices. So that's the first really important thing to say. We are not ever trying to compete. Unless you've got a microphone, it's a lose-lose. You are going to lose that battle. So what we want to do is actually cut through the sound in a different way. And what we can do is actually use our voice slightly differently. And this way we can hopefully rise above the sound versus trying to compete with the sound, or we can kind of cut through the sound versus compete with the sound. So what I'm going to share may sound strange if you were just in a very quiet space and you were talking to one person, but bearing in mind when you've got a lot of background noise, this isn't going to sound half as weird as it does, maybe when you're practicing it in a quiet room, as it would in a room full of people, full of noise, full of music. So just bear that in mind when I go through this now. So I also want to say that before I share these 4 ways that we can actually project over background noise, that these are principles that we want to be taking into our day-to-day speech anyway. All we're doing then when we come to these really noisy environments is we're just taking them to a little bit more of extreme, but we're not completely changing how we use our voice. The challenge is for a lot of people that haven't done any voice training is these could be new concepts to you in the first place. So then you come to try and use them in a noisy environment and it might sound or seem a little bit weird to you to start with. So just to bear that in mind as we go through, these are principles for how your voice really wants to function normally. We're just upping it slightly. So number 1 is pitch. Now, anyone that watches my videos knows I talk a lot about finding your optimal pitch as a speaker. And so with that in mind, this becomes really, really important when you are in a noisy environment. Because if your pitch is too low and you are trying to push your voice out from a low pitch, you're not going to win. It's not going to be very pretty. You're going to really struggle to get your voice out. So obviously we're taking this to an extreme in terms of background noise. But when we think about higher pitches, they will cut through background noise more easily than lower pitches. Now, if we think about this just in our day-to-day life, if you think about emergency services and they have sirens, police, fire, ambulances, they have very high-pitched, piercing sirens. If you think about babies' cries, high-pitched, piercing sound. If you think about smoke alarms, fire alarms, when they go off, they have a high-pitched sound. There's a reason for that, because it cuts through noise. You cannot ignore it. It is almost demands your attention. And whatever else is going on, you will absolutely hear those sirens or alarms going off, or the baby crying. So in the same way, when we are in a very noisy environment, we want to elevate our pitch more than we normally would. Now, the challenge for people comes when you are used to speaking too low for where your voice naturally wants to sit, then this is going to seem like a massive jump to start elevating your pitch that little bit more. So that's where I say you really want to be embodying these principles in your day-to-day speaking. When you come to this sort of background noise scenario, you're not having to tweak how you use your voice that dramatically. So really we want to elevate the pitch that little bit more, because that is going to cut through that background noise more than if I was to talk down here and say, hi, my name's Anuska. If there was background noise, I could elevate my pitch slightly. Hi, my name's Anuska. It's a little bit higher. I'm not going, hi, my name is Anuska. But it's enough to just cut through that sound. Versus if I keep my voice at its sort of normal pitch, it's probably just going to blend into the background noise. So that's number one, pitch. And if this is something that you struggle with in your day-to-day speaking, please do check out my videos on this, because I talk a lot about this. And it's something that I work with every private client on, because in my experience, most people are not speaking from their optimal pitch to start with. Number two is clear, intentional articulation. Now, again, this becomes even more important. So again, we still want this as a principle in how we speak on a day-to-day basis. But again, we are exaggerating everything that we would normally do when we are in these noisy environments. So if you think about it, when you're in a noisy bar or pub, people are as much relying on watching your face and your lips move as they are listening to your words. Which was why when we were all wearing masks, I think it was such a challenge, because we couldn't see anyone's face. So you want to bring more animation to your face when you're speaking. You want to be more deliberate with moving your lips, because that's what we're going to be reading. If we kind of miss some of the words because it's quite noisy, we can tell by your face kind of what you're saying. We can read your lips. So you want to get as much movement through your face as possible. The tongue needs to be far more engaged. We want to have the jaw softly open so the sound can actually come out. If you are barely moving your jaw, barely moving your lips, and barely moving your tongue, and you're talking like this and your pitch is really low, it's going to be very hard for anyone to hear you. And what you're going to feel like you have to do is then push your voice from this place where you're kind of mumbling and your pitch is too low. You're going to lose your voice. You're going to create all kinds of voice problems for yourself if you're trying to compete with loud background noise. Number three, brightness and energy in the voice. So this is the one probably out of all of them, which when you're practicing in a quiet room might sound a little bit over the top. But I promise you, when you're in a very noisy environment, it's just going to mean the difference between people hearing you and not hearing you. So don't get put off by the fact that if you want to practice this, you're like, no, but that's way too over the top. People are going to think there's something wrong with me. It will just sound normal in a loud, noisy, busy room. So you can practice this. So you could sort of practice now just saying, just introducing yourself. Hi, my name's Anuska, in my kind of normal voice. And then if I was in this kind of slightly energized, brighter voice place, hi, my name's Anuska. And you just get a little bit more energy, lightness, and movement in the voice. And it's, again, just going to cut through the sound so much more easily. And then if you include the articulation in that, hi, my name's Anuska, the voice just comes out. People will hear that, versus if it's, hi, my name's Anuska, and I'm not really moving anything and my pitch is low and there's no energy behind my voice. And number four, forwardness. So I talk a lot about this as forward resonance. And again, when we are trying to project our voice, often we are pushing from the upper chest through the neck and the throat. We're pushing the voice from here, and we're sort of almost like pushing the voice up. And what we want to think about with resonance and this forwardness is the voice is coming straight out of your mouth, forward, which sounds kind of really obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people really pull their voice back when they speak. Now, what's going to help you do this is to be driving the voice from the belly. So if I was not doing this and I was pulling my voice back and breathing quite shallow, it might be more like, hi, my name's Sanuska. Hi, my name's Sanuska. Versus if I'm engaging the belly, bringing the sound forward, hi, my name's Anuska, and I can feel my belly engage. So when you combine all of these, when you combine the pitch, the articulation, the brightness and energy in the voice with this forwardness in the voice, then your voice can cut through a lot more easily background noise. People are more likely to be able to hear you, and you're not going to feel like you have to strain or shout or yell to get your voice out. The other thing with the forwardness, I mean, they are all interlinked. You kind of have to do all four of them, to be honest. But the more we articulate through the lips and the more we get the articulators moving, meaning the lips, the tongue, the jaw, particularly, the more that forwardness will actually naturally occur as well, because when we move the lips, we're helping to drive the sound forward. So have a go. And again, you might want to practice this. If this is all alien to you and you don't do any of this normally in your speech, then you want to practice this first of all, just in your normal, quote unquote, conversational everyday speech. But then when you are in these really noisy environments, you just want to kind of turn the dial up a little bit. So go a little bit more elevated with your pitch, a little bit more over the top with your articulation, bring a bit more energy to the face, bring a bit more energy to your voice. And finally, but not least, really think about the voice being driven from the belly and coming forward, coming out forward. You're not reaching, you're not pushing, you're not squeezing. It's all being driven from the belly up, through and out in this nice, clear, open channel. So obviously this can be challenging when we've been drinking because we don't have the same connection to our voice. But this is why I think if you can practice this when you're sober and somewhere quiet where you can just play around with this, and then the next time you are in a noisy environment, even if you can try and put a couple of these things into practice, just see what happens when you slightly elevate your pitch, bring a little bit more brightness to your voice, bring a little bit more intentional articulation to your speech, and also just think a little bit more forward and see what happens, because I promise you it will make a big, big difference, and your voice will thank you for it the next morning when you've got to get up for work and continue to speak. So thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do. It means so much to me and it really helps to get my content out to more people. But if you have any questions, obviously, please do post them below. But I will see you on my next video.